you can't have a birth of something without the loss of something else. It's like two sides of a single coin. The birth of my son was the death of a certain part of me. And that was a gift. And I do not say that lightly with any sort of imbued toxic positive spin on it. That was painful, that death process. And the timing was not how I ever conceptualized it unfolding. But I understand now that that was a gift, because that part of me didn't need to work anymore, didn't need to work so hard. And so I just think there's so much stigma and fear around talking about death and darkness and shadows. And it's interesting because I live in Mexico now, and we just celebrated Dia de los Muertos. And I really think about this a lot during this time of year, especially because there's this beautiful celebration of death as like a fluid exchange. There's a going and coming of spirits that can happen with ease, with beauty. It can be celebrated as part of life. I would love to see culturally us become more comfortable with dancing in the shadows, with like touching and brushing against death as a thing that doesn't have to be feared, but can be explored.
And be revered. I mean, I have a couple of things I want to point out here. Number one, this came from Abraham Hicks, and I loved it. This is so profound. I kind of want to send it to everyone. It was like a 15-minute talk, right? But there is no death. There's life and life. I mean, really take that in. Everyone, take that in. What if if that was a narrative that we actually grew up with, if that was like the true celebration of life and death, is that there is no death, because we are infinite beings. We came before, we came into these bodies from before. We're moving to that beautiful awakened place that there's all love. It's just pure love. I just got this download recently that when my biological grandmother just passed, I spent a few days in New Mexico journeying with her. And it was the most profound experience I've had with death. And in those moments, I had a realization that changed all of my relationships in my life now. And it's that at the moment of transition, at the moment when you transition back into that full infinite light, it's pure love. Any of the ego bullshit that we're going through here with each other is gone. And you fully see each other. You fully feel each other. It's like this, it almost gives us this invitation to let go of all this small shit that we're holding on to together in this life. The other thing I wanted to point out is our love for Mexico. We both have that. It's a culture that is so near and dear to my heart. I miss it since COVID. I just haven't been able to get back, and I miss it so much. And you live there, and it's amazing, right? But when we were talking about it the other day, you were saying how blessed you feel to be there raising your children in a place where children are revered. So in this culture that you get to immerse yourself in, children are revered, and death is revered, and elders are revered. That's a deep state of healing.
Totally. And my husband and I talk about this all the time, because both of us have very different stories, but both of us were, trauma sort of hijacked our childhood. And so it's not ironic. I don't feel that we have chosen, consciously and unconsciously, maybe to some degree, when we took the leap, we didn't totally understand what we were leaping into, but how poignant that we're in a place where childhood is like one of the epicenter values of the culture. So it's this beautiful parallel where we are, getting to sort of steward our children through this experience of childhood, whilst reparenting the wounded children inside ourselves. Like, so many times I have the experience of like, oh my God, the little girl in me just like took a breath. She's there. This is her great do-over. And that's amazing to get to experience with my kids. Like, I think that's so much of what kids need, is not for their parents to be all cerebral in their heads, reading all the books, doing all the things. It's all good. It's all good. But sometimes we just need to play. And I didn't know how to do that when my kids were first born, because that was not a thing that I was allowed to do. So being in a culture where that is so central and integral to life is just, it truly is a gift.